Welcome everybody to the Rally Cry podcast. My name is Angel.
My name is Tyler.
And you guys are here because we're going to work on our wellness, our self-awareness, and work on our healing and understand that we also are in the practice of doing so. And today, we're going to just get right into it because us as men always struggle on being a man.
Ooh.
And understanding what is being a man after hearing other people talk about what is being a man. Like we say that, oh, a man that cries is not being a man. But, you know, why do we be getting told these kind of things? Like, why is it crying makes us less than?
Or you don't make enough money, you're not man. Like, how you call yourself a man? You don't make this amount of money.
Like, what is man enough? Right. By the way, Justin Baldoni, he actually has a podcast called that. But it's just true. Like, being vulnerable as a man is something that has been in the stigma of saying that that's not what is considered to be a man. What's considered to be a man is to be strong and stoic and not affected by emotional struggles or everyday struggles
or anything. If anything, like you're so like impervious to anything that the world will throw at you. Like, you could stand in a tsunami and still be alive with no cuts, no bruises, no nothing.
Then I think that it's an ideal thing to have as a man, like strong and stoic, and make sure that you're this so-called impervious person, right, to a degree, but that doesn't take away from your mental health. You could still be strong, but then still be connected with yourself.
Right.
So if you're ignoring your emotions as a man, you're ignoring yourself at the end of the day. You don't become more of a man running away from your emotions.
And that's where a lot of the things where we get messed up and we get told, oh, just go do this, and like you'll forget about it. Or like how we're raised as kids. We get told like, oh, be on time or go do this because you can't do this. I'll do it for you. And then we're just like, okay, so we're just pushing these thoughts aside. We're not even like talking to ourselves. We're not even asking anything or even being curious. We're told that like our curiosity and everything could lead us to great lengths. But then how we're raised, we don't reach those lengths.
Right. And it's just like, it can happen to a lot of people, and there's certain things that come in the effect of why we don't get connected with ourselves, but especially for men. And to say that June is to be the month of men's mental health awareness, we don't talk about it enough. There's been too many times where there's suicide rates for men all the time, and we're gonna definitely talk about some stats with that. But it's just to think that when we think about crying, we think that it's like, oh well, a man shouldn't cry at all. Like, well, a man that cries every day is unacceptable, but crying and doing something about it is what makes you powerful.
Yes.
So it's just like, it's not to say you can't cry. You can definitely cry. I've cried. Why not?
Have you?
I mean, have I? No, I haven't.
Not recently, I would hope.
I'll say, if anything, there have been more happy tears.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. I think a lot of times we build this stigma that a man that cries is looked down upon. Like, we see Will Smith, we understood that, what happened with that, and when he was crying, we wasn't understanding his mental awareness with that, his mental health at least with that, and we're just making memes about it, and it's just like social media always makes memes for things, and we understand that, but that's not healthy. That doesn't really get into what's actually going on, especially when we listen to music. When we're talking about Juice WRLD, for example, the other episode, all these things that he was saying is like, oh, why is this busting right now? Why is this making me feel so uplifted? I should be sad right now because the things that he's saying sounds crazy. And we don't look at it. We sometimes now look at it as an art, but to look at that as art doesn't make sense at all. And we need to bring the awareness of a man's mental health a lot more, because a lot of times we try to be strong because we feel as if like we get judged of being a little vulnerable or talking about things that may bother us, because we should just go through with it. Like, oh, we should just go through it, go through the fire, have needles on the floor, and we gotta walk through it and barefooted at that. And it's just like this floor of fire. You know what I mean? It's just like, why do we have to go through these things? It's not to say certain things should just be given to us. No. And it's also not to say it's not like, other people go through these similar experiences, but especially for men, we don't ever feel as we need to talk to each other, at least, right? Like, if I'm a man, I wouldn't want to talk to another man about what's going through me, because I feel like that's me being weak or being soft to another man.
Right.
But being able to talk to another person that, you know, respects you, of course, and you respect them, and talk about what's actually going with your mental health is very important. But we always like discredit it all the time. And that's big in a man's mental health. Like, it's not to say even in a woman's mental health, for sure. But I think even previously, when we were talking about how men and women are different and how women are a lot more social creatures, women are a lot more uplifting within their community and their group than if men are. Like, yes, if a man is making money and all these things, they uplift them in that way. But what about like how I feel? Like, I just don't feel good today. I'm just having a bad day. Let's not talk about money right now. Let's not talk about anything like that pertains to financials. That's important, yes. Yeah. But other things are important too. Like, you got to take time for other things. It's not always about money and working and all these things, because that's what gives us the mental burnout. Yeah,
and I like how Angel brought up the aspect of crying, because when we think about crying, we only think about crying for what it is, but like now we have to get into specifics. We got to get into details. Are we crying for happy things? Are we crying for sad things? Yeah. Why is this person crying? And when we think about Juice WRLD's music, a lot of his music lyrics particularly were a cry for help. And even with that cry for help, here we are doing the same thing that we do. We're ignoring it, putting it to the side, and now here he is improvising, trying to make his way to find some kind of relief, because clearly music was his way of relief. That's how everybody else was able to relate, understand that they're not alone, and it was great for other people, but who was there for him? Who was loving him when he couldn't love himself? And now that's where a lot of men also get sidetracked into thinking that, okay, if I just improvise also, and I'll just do this, like, I'll just find my way, or like how somebody I know personally says it, I do what I do. Like, that's so vague. Like, what do you mean you do what you do? You know, to do what you do, it's almost seems like as if it's a way to relieve themselves, so that way they don't have to worry about what it's actually going to take, the hard work that's actually going to have to be put in order to heal themselves, whether it's through handling their mental health, talking to themselves. And like Will Smith, when Will Smith was crying in those tears, he may not have expressed it, but those tears were so powerful because they were silent. That's what made it powerful. Yeah. And if women can be so catering or respectful, honest, and gentle with another woman's feelings and be mindful for their mental health, why is it that this cycle has been continued for men to not do the same thing? You know, even if a guy is expressing his thoughts, his opinion on something, it can even be misperceived as like, why are you being soft? Like, the thing is, if we're able to express ourselves, have freedom of speech, we shouldn't already demean someone's thoughts, their identity, and their feelings by saying, why are you being soft? Acknowledge it and respect it as you would like for somebody to do to yourself, because if that was done to you, now you're being soft because you're being sensitive and because you don't like how they disrespected your thoughts and feelings. So now it's this endless cycle or this loop that keeps on bouncing back and forth like a ping pong table.
Exactly. And actually, to be honest, when it comes to crying, it's actually really good for you. Like, crying actually releases oxytocin and endorphins, which are like feel-good hormones. And it's why, like, sometimes when you have like a real big cry, like you're crying for a minute, you can say for an hour. And I'm pretty sure many of us been there. And then you go to sleep, or you're just so tired and you take a nap or something and you wake up, you're like, damn, bro, I needed that. I needed that. So like, if you need to cry, just cry it out. Even if it's like, if you're being happy. I feel like for myself, if I were to having a bad day and there's something that can at least relieve me from stress, and if crying is one of them, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll let it go, because if I keep holding it in, it's only going to hurt me more, because it's just emotions that are hurting me, and I need to let go of that emotion by crying it out. So I just think that even if you have to do it in silence, I know there's people that do it all the time, but you shouldn't feel any less than of a man if you're crying. Yes, you don't want to always cry in front of your significant other. I do agree with that to a degree, but it's not to say you should feel ashamed if you ever do, because they got to understand you to a degree. And if there's another woman that can't even accept you as a man because you're crying, then that's not a woman you want to be around. That's for sure. I don't care what anybody says, because holding it in is just not going to help you if you're a man or a woman, but especially if you're a man.
Right, and I think the expectations of a man to have everything, and I don't want to totalize it and say just have everything. The idea of like a man having everything is because we look at the end goal. A lot of times we just focus on the end goal, and that's where, like our last episode, we get fear from success. Because we're worried about, okay, we know this goal, but, like, what is it going to take? What do I have to lose? What do I have to sacrifice? What about my life is going to change in order for me to get there? Can I get there? Can I be consistent? You have all these questions for yourself. And when you're that scared, especially as a man, you know, don't get peer pressured into believing that you're not enough because you don't have this. Everybody's position in life is different. You're not going to, like, there could be a 23-year-old realtor, right? And they're making money. They're making six figures. But then it's like, okay, then you have this other person that's 23. They only have they're just in the process of getting their associate's degree. So if you're going to demean your progress, then how are you going to appreciate when you're even making progress? You can't appreciate that because you're over here worried about, man, this other person, like, you're totalizing them, pedestalizing them. You're putting them in a position where, like, you know, you almost look at them as God. Now you're giving them more power to keep on going with what they're doing. But where's the power that you need for yourself? How are you going to give this person power by acknowledging them so much and be like, I'm so happy for you? Are you happy for yourself? Can you be happy for yourself? That's important. And as a man, as men at least, we have to not only be honest with ourselves, however, we have to be strong, because at the end of the day, like when it comes to careers, there are careers that will never be out of business, like construction, being an engineer, being a plumber. Like, these things are not only appreciated for, but think about the grueling days that they have to go through just to make money, put money on the table, but they are still looked at as like, oh, but he doesn't have time for me. He doesn't have time for me, whether it's guy friends or even if you have a significant other. It's, you know, a lot of things can go unappreciated as a guy because we're just so straightforward and we're solution based. So as logical as we can be, we would like to find everything that can make our lives easier so that way we could provide, because biologically, if you guys didn't know, biologically as men, we naturally give so that way we could provide, which is why the phrase, if you haven't heard it, you need a man that could provide. You know what I mean? So when you could provide for it as a man, everything will come to you. And it's not that you take it, it just revolves around you. Life works around you better when you could provide, because then everything else naturally for you as a man just comes out.
That kind of just goes back to when you was mentioning how, like, we're like not appreciated for all the things that we do, like all this hard work, labor, right? If we didn't have men, all this labor work wouldn't really be in effect, like construction and all the things that you mentioned. And it's like how what Chris Rock said, at least initially, like how only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally, and men are only loved by the condition that they provide. Mm-hmm. It's, to a degree, it's true, but it shouldn't be true. Mm-hmm. That's the thing.
The truth hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts, and it is not going to sound great all the time to hear.
Nope.
And even when it comes to that, you got to think about, okay, and if men are going to be appreciated to provide, guarantee the only type of men that are appreciated and adored and sought after, firemen. Because the moment they get to the scene, they're like, oh my gosh, so happy that you're here. You can save me. Save them, please. Please. But then when it's the police, it's like, the police, and it's like, all right, be careful. Be on your P's and Q's. Going to try to use anything against you. What if those police and we are not condoning the bad police, the crooked police. We're not saying that. But for the police to actually do their job, care for the people, and care about the community, they already get that bad look. It's like, it's the police. You just get bad ideas when it comes to the police. Mm-hmm. For men that can provide safety, it's always going to be the firemen. Like, there's not really a lot of type of men in careers that are going to be like...
Yeah, because it's just to be saved, or a man that can be a protector. Like, that definitely is something that is a man that can protect, because essentially that's what a woman is looking for. So it's just to say that, you know, there's a lot of things that we should be appreciative of men out there. It's just that we just don't acknowledge them. So it's just a coincidence that we only acknowledge them for certain roles that they play. So it's going back to what they provide. Like, if they're a fireman, police officer, even so, it's to what they provide that gives them value based on the importance of their life. Right. It almost seems as. But let's get into some research because even with all these mental health challenges for men, there's a lot of stats that show that why men are getting to suicide rates, and actually why also how they're becoming a lot more endangered. I would say.
I like that. Endangered. Okay,
Yeah.
not the species,
Not-
but
yeah. But it's just to say that there is a lot more women in the world than men, and to say that a lot are more in suicides is crazy. So research shows that men face a significant mental health challenges, including depression, anxiety, and high rates of suicides. According to the CDC, in 2019, the suicide rate for men was 2.28 per 100,000, and for women it was 5.7 per 100,000. And so that means that males make about 50% of the population, but nearly 80% is suicide.
and why is that? Like,
That's
like
ridiculous.
that,
Mental health.
And the thing is, I like how you bring up earlier, because when you think about it, a lot of times we don't even acknowledge the fact that when was the first time we ever heard that June was Men's Mental Health Awareness Month?
I
never in my life ever heard that.
Supposedly it was established in 1992. But
before we're born. So like,
but
why isn't this specialized more?
I don't know exactly. I don't know why am I hearing it a lot more now.
Oh wow.
But yeah,
That's very sad, because like, if these numbers, and like obviously these numbers are up to date and recent, and as we know, like there's a lot of men, being a man is hard, like, a lot of times, and for the homes where boys don't have their fathers, they don't know about adversity.
That too.
They don't know about like how you need to be logical based rather than emotionally based. And there's no offense to the single mothers that are out there taking care of their sons, and like, let's say their son still becomes famous or financially secure. It's the idea, like, think about the networking he had to do and the men he had to surround himself in to be in his own identity. Like,
right.
you have to be able to hang out with other guys, and not for nothing, I mean, being able to express yourself to other guys that are not only like-minded like you, however, they respect you and you trust them and they trust you. Mm-hmm. And it's not the idea like we have to have a sob party and have a boo-hoo, like, my life is like this. You can express what is going on in your life, what is there, and be open to like the solutions. Don't think that they're not acknowledging what you're saying. Don't think that we have to ruminate and just talk about what you're going to be like, damn, that's crazy. Yep. Like, I wouldn't do that if I was in your position, or if I was in your position, man, I wouldn't know what to do. Yep. Help them find a solution. At the end of the day, when we express ourselves and we're going through turmoil or having these tribulations stand in our way because we want this, but it's going to take this, and that in order to get that exactly. Right. Find a solution. Step by step. Be organized, be critical, and be efficient.
Yeah, it's to say that we, as men in a society, we got each other. It's not to say there's women out there that can uplift a man. Yeah, I'm definitely sure of that. But I think there is only to a degree that they can elevate them, right? Mm-hmm. Us as men have to elevate each other as long as we're trying to elevate ourselves and work on ourselves. But that just goes over for the whole mental health aspect. It's always a constant work. You always got to work on yourself. And it's kind of a different genre almost when it comes to men and women. Like, there's certain things that men got to focus on to better their lifestyle than a woman's lifestyle. It's just a little different because of the dynamics that they go through. Like, I'm less to be scared to go outside at dark, and I can protect myself at dark, but a woman can't go outside at dark and protect herself, essentially. Like, there's women that can, but idealistically, it's just like, it's more scarier for women to go out there, which is so unfortunate. Mm-hmm. But for the men that are out there, you just got to keep working on yourself and surround yourself with people that you can trust, right? Mm-hmm. And that takes a lot of work, but you got to start somewhere and figure it out yourself first. You got to love yourself first. You got to understand yourself first so that you can understand other people first. And I be saying this all the time. We be saying on this podcast, like, you got to work on yourself before you try to have other people work with you. Mm-hmm. So it's just to say, like, with all the stats and all these suicide rates, and now that it's increasing over the years, especially after COVID, it increased by 21%, actually. It's just to say, why is it so hard for us to look for help? And it's just because we feel as we're going to be judged by it. Like, we're going to think that we're weak. And sometimes if we're asking for help, it's used against us. And it's just thrown in our face. And then we just want to be alone, and we don't want to be with anyone else in our circle because so many people stabbed us in our back. But just because they did that doesn't mean it should limit you from trying to find another source of help. You know what I mean? Because there's people out there. You just gotta you gotta just work on yourself. It's gonna come to you. I would say you gotta look for it, but you gotta work on yourself first, and it'll come to you. Because how many times you try to look for your keys and you can't find your keys, and then after a while you're not really looking for it anymore and you find it.
That's happened to me so many times, and now is like immediate, like what I do. And thing is, we have to learn and adapt, right? So because that happens a lot of times in our lives when we're forgetful and we're like, oh, I can't find this. I don't know where I placed it last time, but these are the places that I know I would put it at. Now, if I can't find it in 5 minutes, I'll just be like, you know what? I'm not giving up. Waving the white flag. It's temporary. I'll take a break. Take a break. Ain't nothing wrong with taking a break. And I'll be like, I'll find it when I'm not looking for it. I just tell myself that, and that's what happens. Life works in mysterious ways, and we have to understand, like, when adults say, like, oh, I've been through this, trust me, and we don't listen to them, we have to listen to ourselves when we know this experience. If we're going to talk of an experience so much and we're trying to help ourselves, imagine, as a man, you being able to guide people. At the end of the day, your impact on society, your impact on life is what you're left with. You know, after we all die, what did you leave on earth? What did you do? I mean, all this money, all these cars, all the houses, everything that you could buy with money, that doesn't go with you. But what is your impact? Is your name going to be bigger than the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Is your name going to be remembered in America? Is your name going to be remembered in your town, your city, your village, wherever you live at?
Yep.
Are you going to be remembered for what you did? Like, what did you do to help out to change the way things are for the way we live? And right now, there's not enough of it. And as Angel mentioned, this month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And before the month ends off, we want to admit that, yeah, we are aware of other months, like even with Black History Month. Why is Black History Month only February? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that could happen and be celebrated in a month or a day or a week.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge everything. So it's unfortunate that Men's Mental Health Awareness Month is not mentioned enough or at all, if anything. Because, you know, like, there's not a lot of people talking about it. And then when you do see it, it's like that one microscopic, like, oh, that's that cockroach there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got it finally. Like, oh, okay, so it's there, though. It's just that microscopic 0.1%. And then everything else around it is what you shouldn't be paying attention to.
Right.
And so from time to time, men will keep getting better. We have to keep doing better, though. Yeah,
you got to do the work. You got to
definitely do the work.
If not, it's not going to pay out for it. So it's just to say the truth is, with all the sense of a man being vulnerable, a way of being vulnerable is able to express your feelings in an articulate manner.
Yeah.
Right? The whole point is, like, we want to understand that our emotions are what sways us. So if our emotions, especially as men, sway us, then it makes us powerless. But if we can know how to communicate our discomforts effectively, that's what makes us as a leader. So one that delivers respects, then receives it. Unless there's people that don't know what respect is in general, of course, then that takes away from that. But if I'm a person that could respect myself, I understand what respect is. So therefore, I wouldn't let anyone else disrespect me.
Yep.
And that's what makes me as a man. It makes me as a leader, because I can tell what is for me and what isn't for me.
Yep.
Like, we just got to understand that we have to work together as men, unite together, and understand our well-being is very important, and don't let anyone else bring us down for what we do. If you feel like you need to cry, go ahead. Do you have to do it in front of everybody? You don't have to. But don't feel as if, like, you are with your significant other and you can't and cry in front of her, because some vulnerability lets her know that you're capable of that. And it will take away a lot if you just didn't show some of that side of you, because that is who you are. We're human. We're naturally going to cry. We're naturally going to feel sad. But just try to not do it so much, because then at that point you just become a crybaby, because it's just like, bro, you got to figure it out. That's what makes you a man. But if you just keep sobbing over it and you just sit there and do nothing, then that's what makes you less of a man, because you're not doing nothing. You're just stagnant, and that's not what growth is.
You're going against your biological makeup as a man. And it sounds like we're being totalizing, and it sounds like, okay, like who wrote this rule book? Like, why does a man have to be like this? Why does a man have to be that? Biologically, over time, without even looking up research or anything like that, men have always had to provide. Men have always had to do something that's able to provide, but also do something that's capable of teaching as well. We want to be able to educate and provide and protect. And if we can't protect, respect, educate, provide, like all these things together, if we can't do any of that, why do you think there's a lot of men that are offing themselves, are taking themselves out of commission? Why do you think there's a lot of men that are relying on the government and just think that they can't do anything anymore, and they just give up and be like, you know what, back in my day, they start talking like that. Back in my day when I was able to do this, and they could be in their 30s or 40s, why you already gave up? Like, you're in your prime. Now, physically, your body may not be able to keep up with physical things like you used to when you were younger, but you're still young. Like, you could go to college at 60. You can still do something. You can figure out. There's people like Oprah wasn't Oprah all her life. At 23, did you know that she was fired as a cash register? At the cash register? So it's like, if Oprah wasn't who she was at 23 back then, and I know that's not a man, but anyways, my example, if Oprah wasn't who she was then and she kept on trying, now she is who she is. Think about how hard it was for The Rock. Think about how hard it was for people like Jay-Z, as I mentioned last episode, LeBron James, who was, homeless in Cleveland. Like, you got people that had to go. Like, adversity is what makes a man. It's what drives us. And even men in the gym, yeah, they may be self-centered, and yeah, they're working on themselves, but they love themselves enough to do so, and they're working hard through it. But what is working out? Pushing past your limits. You are working on your body. You are physically grueling yourself so that way you can become better. And that's a different process of what it is to be a man. We're fighting through those struggles, facing the challenges, and showing up. And regardless of how it comes out, whether it's the first time, second time, or even seventh time, the fact that you showed up, you did it, committed to your word, and stood by your promise, that's what makes a man.
Yeah, I agree. You're just always working on yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, all the things that make life a lot more sustainable. Mm-hmm. Going for walks is real good.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to be down to earth, to be honest. But
more with nature, like you said.
It's so much, there's a lot of preference to everybody. Everybody has a way that they'll live, but definitely being aware of your mental health, especially as a man, is important. And the stigma that has been out there has coming out more and more on how important men's health is. Mm-hmm. So I think if you are going through something and there's a lot in your life, you can definitely call or text 988, which is a hotline where someone can talk to you. If you know someone that's going through it and their mental health is just like all over the place, they can also call or text them. So either reach out or have someone reach out. To wherever you watch this podcast, make sure that you follow us on there. Follow us on Instagram, therallycry.podcast. You can also see our clips there, so it just gets straight to the point. And follow us for more so that you don't miss an episode, you don't miss a second, and we could talk more about wellness and being aware of all these things so that we can better ourselves, because if we could better ourselves, we could better the people around us, or at least try in doing so. So I don't know if Tyler, if you want to say anything before we go.
Better ourselves so we could build better relationships.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's all she wrote. Or that's all he wrote.
All right, guys. Until next time, y'all be easy.
And y'all be breezy.
Peace.